Okay, Dr. Bailey, what, like I said, what we're going to do, I just want to kind of ask you about the story behind the hair. I guess if that's, it's such a little bit of an odd topic, but I think it's, I remember the story back from when I was a freshman in your class, and I know you have a great story, so if you could just explain to me the religious reason behind keeping your hair long.
Okay. I think this is what you're alluding to, but bottom line, I do believe in prayer and fasting and just seeking the Lord's will. And I just remember there was a period of time when I was in a period of fasting, and I had set aside 40 days just for the prayer and a type of fasting that I personally went through. And as I approached the end of that 40 days, I was impressed by the Lord speak to me to basically say, don't stop the fast. And I wasn't quite sure what that meant, but he basically led me in to a Nazirite vow, or what I call in the tradition of the Nazirite vow. And the main parts of that, there are several, but for me the most important was to not cut my hair, and no alcohol or drugs, those sorts of things. So that's really where that began. And then when I asked the Lord, just in my own way of talking with him, of when I end this, and he pretty much said, "Will I tell you to?" So I just continue on with it, and I haven't ever felt impressed to not end it on my own. And I think it's just been very valuable for whatever reason for me being separated out to serve the Lord in kind of a unique way. And it's actually opened up more doors than I thought it would, although that's obviously not the intent of it.
And that's, you know, it brings me to one of my next questions is, do people, I don't want to say do they ask you about it or do they stare or anything like that, but does it come up in other parts of conversation to say, you know, a Dr. Bailey, you know, a practicing doctor, but the long hair and the does that ever come up in other?
Not really. I think maybe in a time gone by that it may have been more so, but especially on our campus here at MBU, I think we really do appreciate diversity. And I think a person's style or what they wear is much more acceptable on this campus and even in this generation, if you will. Now, in my own class, we always talk about people's perceptions. And before I tell them the story about the Nazirite vow or my journey in that, I ask them, why do some people think that I have long hair? Invariably, people say, oh, you were raised in the 60s, or you're a hippie, or they kind of speculate in all that way. But then I just try to go very seriously with them and tell them the truth in my case, because everybody wears their hair differently for different reasons. And you always have to get to know the individual person, I think.
And do students, when they do hear that story, how do they normally react?
I think in a classroom, you're always going to have a wide range of how each person reacts. I think some people, it encourages their faith to walk with the Lord, knowing that He is personal, that He can communicate to us today in unique ways. I think other people, it just doesn't register that much at all. But I'd probably say everywhere in between on that.
Because I know I found it very interesting, and it's something I actually haven't forgotten about. You know, to have one of my teachers with long hair for a religious reason, and you know, you don't find that on a normal college campus in a general education psychology class.
Right. You know? It doesn't happen that much anymore. And obviously, a psych class here at MBU is much different than on a secular campus. And I do appreciate being able to just tell my faith journey and share it with the students, and the journey never stops. So in some ways, to be able to walk with people like Samson or John the Baptist, various people who have been called to a Nazirite vow, it's just interesting how God speaks to us individually, but there's a continuity in the family of God that I think can be appreciated.
And you say you went through this whole fasting, starting that fast, and when God told you, let's keep the hair long, and to do that and to stay with that. How long ago was that? When did that start?
It could be maybe a couple years. It would have been 9/11/13. I was wrapping up that 40-day prayer and fasting in a more traditional way. So it was around 9/11/13. So over a year. Yeah.
That's great. That's a wonderful, it's a wonderful story, and there's not much more that I think we need to know. So thank you for your time.
You're very welcome.